mania. The guys winning the Heisman, what Connor said before you guys all got here. Not really, I'm just kidding. I'm putting words in his mouth. But there's a ton of hype coming out from behind him. There was a clip that went around I don't know if you guys have seen it, that was getting a lot of hypeness with Shane Matthews talking to Buddy Martin. And Shane wasn't very high on Anthony last year. He had his reasons for him. We're not going to get into that, but he's very high, very optimistic, very glass half full with Mertz. And he talked about the process and what he thinks the offense is going to be like. And here's what I will say about one of these guys. Shane Matthews, he's close. He lives in Gainesville. He's like a Judd Davis, in my opinion. Judd I talk to all the time. Judd has personal relationships and personal conversations with these coaches, just like how we're chit-chatting now. Like, Judd will come by and say, yeah, he came over for dinner. This is what we talked about. That's how the conversations are. So when they tell it, and those guys don't care. Like, they just say how the conversation is. They really don't hold their water very well, which I love. It's the same kind of, the same era. And he talked about, look, I think the offense is going to be, just one running back in the backfield with a tight end, 3 wide receiver set, and we're going to see the ball thrown a lot, which I have not been stating that. So I would be taken back if that is the case, because I thought for sure we're going to be doing a lot, run it down the throat. But I'd be okay with the alternative, because I think it speaks to the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, shuts up everybody saying, like, you guys don't have a quarterback, etc. But with the first few days, the noise is that there's a complete 180 from the spring game. Connor, can you confirm or deny that he's winning the Heisman?
No, I can't confirm or deny either of those statements. But okay. I will say this: I was actually talking to Brandon Carroll at our website about this last night, actually, and we were talking about Mertz, and we were talking about how Anthony Richardson, of course, was just this phenomenal athlete, fantastic player. But with Anthony, you got really, really high highs and really low lows. And I think Mertz is going to be a much more even-keeled quarterback. You're not going to get the type of quarterback that's going to go single-handedly win you a game like Anthony did against Utah. But you're also not going to get somebody that is in his first year of starting and lets one mistake snowball into a bunch of them and lose you a game like a Kentucky or a Vanderbilt. So we were talking about, well, if you have Mertz on this team last year, what is your plus minus on win total as opposed to Anthony? One, defense I think is going to be much more improved this year, so I don't think it's comparing apples to apples, but I think you're at a +1 net if you have somebody like a Graham Mertz at the quarterback last year, as opposed to someone like Anthony Richardson. And that's not a slight to Anthony. I know Anthony personally. He's a fantastic young man. He's a phenomenal athlete. I think he's going to have a very successful NFL career. But he was having to learn on the fly because of the lack of experience that he got from Dan Mullen and not allowing him to start when he probably should have been in Dan's last year. So he was first year starting. Mertz has, as Billy Napier has said 100 times, he's got 30 plus starts under his belt. He's going to be able to get to the line, check you into the right play. Is he going to be able to take off and go get 65, 70 yards or throw you a 70-yard bomb? Probably not. But he's going to check you into the right play, get you out of a negative play into a positive play, and I think that's a net positive.
Yeah, real quick before you go, Dave, because I know you got it, but I think that's the biggest thing that I have been preaching on, and we have to always clarify this isn't a shot towards Anthony. Anthony is a phenomenal young man. We've met, obviously, we talked to him on the show too, and we talk about it on our Sunday show. My concern with the NFL is his lack of starts, his lack of playing time, which what comes into play with lack of play is when you're in the middle of a game time decision. You're not callous to that particular situation. So you're more likely to make like you said, his lows are really low, a big major mistake. Where somebody like a Heisman will just throw it away, and you're like, what are you throwing it away for? Well, the alternative here, the numbers tell me that if I try to make this happen, that it could turn into a pick six. Throw it away, let's get the punt, we'll figure it out on the next play. And he keeps referring to 30 starts under his belt because that is absolutely massive. And Mullen didn't give Anthony too much time, and don't forget, Anthony's like last half of the year, according to Mullen, he was hurt. So how many reps was he actually getting during practice if he was hurt for that last half of the semester? So he came in, essentially not a freshman, but pretty damn close to it. And that is my concern with him going to Indy. And that's kind of what I keep saying on the NFL. Is like, look, the guy is an athletic freak. We see what the potential and the ceiling is unreal. Right now, Florida, Bill, he was not prepared for that talent. He needed somebody to come in and be able to just manage the game. It was almost like they didn't sync up at the right time. That's kind of what it was, in my opinion. They just not a good time. That the team was in a weird place. You put him into a just say a Georgia system where it's already flowing. You can put somebody with that kind of rocket power speed because the rest of it will make up for the lack of. We just had too many holes to be able to pick up the pieces, and I think those things are getting fixed, like you said, with the defense. So go ahead, Dave. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, man, you talk about Anthony Richardson, and obviously, he was an explosive play machine. The only thing that he struggled with was making the simple throws, and I've heard Shane Matthews consistently say that a quarterback has to make those simple throws. I mean, that slant can't go sailing 10 feet over somebody's head. It's got to be right on the money and on the target. Of course, we know Anthony Richardson was a great athlete. He could throw the deep ball really well, but his accuracy just lacked. And like you said, it's just his first year starting. And he kind of struggled that in high school too. So, I mean, props to Anthony Richardson for being a first round draft pick and going to, the Colts and doing what he's doing right now. But I love Shane Matthews, man. Shane is one of those guys that doesn't beat around the bush.
Not
I've
at all.
interviewed him twice. I've listened to the pod of Shane Matthews. I listened to it. Yeah, he is very, very straightforward. Doesn't beat around the bush. Doesn't BS. I mean, this guy, he's had over a decade in the NFL, and he's won so many awards at the University of Florida, so he knows what he's talking about. And you hear him on his show, he's talking about like, hey man, we're gonna be a lot more pass happy. And if you go look at Graham Mertz stats, any kind of PFF stats on those short routes, on those 0 to 9 range routes, he is throwing 70%, where Anthony Richardson threw like 50 and maybe even 48 at some times in some or certain routes. You're not gonna get that kind of play out of Graham Mertz. So those little easy nickel and dime first downs, you'll get that. Now, what I'm concerned with now, obviously, when he was at Wisconsin, threw a lot of interceptions. He was pressured a lot. He was sacked a lot. Does the offensive line have a lot to do with that? Yes, it does. But at the same time, you got to be able to make better decisions if you're getting pressured. If just throw it out of bounds, don't try to make the play. And I think that's something he's learned with those 30 starts. And hopefully, here at the University of Florida, you get him some better weapons around him. Also, with the tutelage that he learned in Wisconsin and the mistakes that he learned, didn't really see that there. You saw, he got pressured a lot in that spring game. There was a lot of blitz packages. There was, the starting offensive linemen, a lot of them weren't playing that game either. He still threw for 244 and a touchdown. So you got to tip your hat to, the situation that he was in when he started in the spring game. And hey, I saw quarterbacks around the nation do worse in their spring game. So
Sure.
I'll tip my hat to Graham Mertz, and hopefully with these new weapons and everything, it'll be a lot better.
Do you think the last question, Connor? Do you think the wide receiver room is much improved from last? And I mean not much, but more improved than last year. And it's not a knock; it's just simply what it is.
Yeah, I think from top to bottom, it is an improved wide receiver room. Think you just infused it with a tremendous amount of talent in two guys that are for sure going to get a bunch of playing time this year in Eugene Wilson and Andy Jean, and maybe a third because Aiden Mizell can just take the top off of defense. And speaking of spring game, you saw it in the spring game where he was just running by DBs. And granted, if he's 170 pounds, I don't care. If a corner can't cover him one-on-one down the sideline, I don't care if you weigh 155 pounds. Look at what Devontae Smith did at Alabama at 168 pounds or whatever he was. Just throw it up and he's down there somewhere.
He's not tackling nobody. I need him to get past somebody. So I need him to get through and by somebody. But yeah, look, I think, and what's interesting too is even Billy spoke to the offensive line. He felt that the depth was better than it was last year. Talent-wise, I think, look, you can't knock the talent that was on an offensive lineman, but depth was an issue all around, and the depth seems to be much healthier this year as well, too, and who knows how much of a factor that played to it. So, look, the schedule's tough. That's always going to be a thing, and it's only going to get tougher, but I think the direction of it and where we kind of concluded here is that we're all headed in the right direction. But, Connor, through the lagging and technical difficulties, we were able to get it done, man. Pleasure as always. Like I said, I genuinely enjoy you always coming on here. You're always up for it and always down for it. I hope you get to 10,000 followers ASAP. If you guys are not following him,
yeah, man, it's always.
Yeah, go follow him.
No, you're good. I apologize for cutting you off. No, it's always a pleasure to come on and talk football with you guys, man. It's something I enjoy, something I'm passionate about. So anytime you guys need me to jump on the podcast and talk Florida football, I am definitely willing.
I love it. Well, Hollywood, you be good, man.